Yo, guys, it's Hurt doing a Week 11 early look breakdown here for the Sunday main slate on DraftKings. Doing a first look lineup, talking through all the positions, who we should start targeting, and why. So let's get right into it. Before I get into it, if you guys just hit that like button and subscribe, do really appreciate it. It really helps out my channel. So starting off here, in terms of overall kind of lineup build, lineup path, kind of that route that everyone's going. As of right now, we're getting a lot of cheap running backs just due to some injuries. So I think kind of the build right now is going to be locking him CMC. We'll get to that in a minute, but that and then get into one of the value running backs. And then from there, it's kind of wide open in terms of quarterback. You can either pay up for studs like Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson. You get to a guy like Stafford, who's been on fire, Baker Mayfield in a potential sneaky shootout. Justin Herbert looks really good at 6,300 going against the Jaguars. Moving on down a little bit more, I mean, you get Jordan Love, like you guys get it. In terms of quarterbacks, you can pay up for all those guys, or you can pay down for guys in spots like we have Jameis Winston, 4,600 going against Green Bay. Obviously, tough defense, but we know Jameis. He's going to air out the ball. He has a little bit of rushing upside. They should be down. So it's a good game script for him passing the ball 30, 35, 40 plus times at 4,600. Like we can easily pair him up with a few different people, or even run him naked if we want. Because if he goes out there and gets you 20 plus fancy points at that cheap price tag, it just allows you to pay up in other spots. So we saw that with Davis Mills last week. I think he was in the winning lineup because he scored 28 at, 4,500. Like that is a potential upside, and that allows you to pay up for those stud running backs, wide receivers, because you're able to pay down at quarterback. So that's the kind of the goal there is if you go down to one of those guys, you really hope they go for 20 plus or, 20 plus because it really helps out your lineup. So there's those options because we have obviously Jameis Wilson, we have Davis Mills once again, we have Penix Jr., we have Bryce Young, Jacoby Brissett's price really hasn't moved, even coming off of pretty bad game there, which he ended up still getting to 20 plus fantasy points. That's 4 straight now. Another solid matchup for him going against San Fran. So there's just a plethora of options in terms of like, do you want to pay up? Do you want to go in the mid range, or do you want to pay down? I think right now most people are going to pay down for like Jacoby, Jameis, and then pay up at other spots. So I don't mind paying up for one of the stud quarterbacks. For me, I think Josh Allen is probably the safest, but I don't mind getting to Lamar here. Coming off of just kind of an average, below average game there. Obviously, they won in Minnesota, but in terms of the Lamar standards, wasn't the best. 176 passing yards, 1 touchdown, 36 rushing yards, nothing to write home about. But they are playing Cleveland. I think most people are going to be scared of this matchup just because he's not drawing a ton of ownership right now. But as we saw in week 2, like he has the ability to go off. It's Lamar Jackson, explosive offense. I know it might be a gross game there, and I will call out in week 2. I think the score was 10-3 at half, and then obviously Lamar and them came out in the second half and absolutely destroyed them. But still, it wasn't the best game there in the first half. But it's Lamar Jackson. You're getting him at a pretty cheap price tag, so both of those guys look great. I think I'd go to one of them. I'm going to pump the brakes a little bit. I've been talking up Stafford, but going against a tough Seattle defense here, Devontae Adams should be there, which should help for Stafford, but it's just, can he continue this hot streak? It's been great. I don't mind getting to him, but I'm going to pump the brakes a little bit on him. I really like Herbert here against Jacksonville. The issue is just this offensive line. Like, they're going to get Herbert killed. He's going to absolutely just destroy it every single game because they have no one to block. But that bodes well for the passing script and for this game to be close and for him to pass a ton. So he looks good. As gross as it sounds, I do have interest in Jordan Love. That offense is terrible. I mean, the team in general is just bad. Like, let's just say it how it is. Like, they're frauds, kind of like the Bills, where one game they look good and the rest they kind of just play down to their opponent and they look bad. And that's kind of what the Packers have been. They've been bad. But Jordan Love does have 20, 25, 30 plus upside. So it's one of those things where they're in a great spot against the Giants in GPPs, especially in these tournaments where, $1 million to first place, you're going against 147,000 other lineups. You can sprinkle in some Jordan Love at 6,000 because he has that upside, and most people are not going to want to play him, especially after that stinker they had was on Monday Night Football. So he is viable. Caleb Williams, once again, they look pretty solid. A couple comebacks there for him in another game where they should probably be down just because their defense is pretty bad. So he looks good. I don't love Sam Darnold going against the Rams defense. Obviously, we can kind of write this game off just because they were up like 38-0 at like the start of the second quarter, so they didn't have to pass at all, 12 attempts. But before that, he's been a little bit spotty, and they go against pretty solid defense here. So I think right now he's more of a stay away from me. You get Joe Flacco going against the Pittsburgh defense, arguably the worst, passing defense in the league right now. I mean, Pittsburgh is absolutely just getting torched left and right by every single team they play in terms of the passing game. And now you get Joe Flacco, T. Higgins, Jamar Chase rolling in, who they'll, as you can see, they're throwing it like 45 times a game the past few weeks. So he looks really good there as a really solid quarterback option at that price tag. Shoulder doesn't really look too bad for him. Aaron Rodgers on the other side of that. They're going against arguably the other worst defense in the league, Cincinnati, who, if you want to know how bad they are, just look at Justin Fields' box score and look who he threw. I think it was for 250 yards against, and had one of his best games of the season against was the Bengals defense. So, yeah, I mean, Aaron Rodgers looks good here, has shown that ability to go for 20+. You can pair him with DK Metcalf, maybe a tight end. Maybe you get a little bit weird with Calvin Austin, but at 5.4K, like in a smash spot, he looks good. That's what I'm saying. Like, you can kind of go anywhere in terms of the quarterbacks for this slate this weekend. There's not like a clear, must play for this weekend like we've had in kind of weeks past. Moving on down, as I said, Jacoby Brissett, like 4 straight of 20+. Hard not to like him there in a game that they should be down. And the San Francisco 49ers defense has not been the best at all. Moving on down a little bit more, as I mentioned, Bryce Young, Michael Penix Jr., I don't think there's a need to get to them. If you're going to take a shot on one of those guys, I just think I'd rather get to like a Jameis Winston or Davis Mills, where you can get to Nico Collins to pair with him because he loves throwing the ball to Nico. And then with Winston, like we know he's just going to come out and just absolutely throw the ball everywhere. Turnover prone, but still, like they should be down in that game. You can pair him with Theo Johnson or Wan'Dale Robinson. Like, as I said, there's a million different ways to go with this quarterback situation. I think right now, in terms of a first look build, that is where do I want to go with this? I think let's just go with let's get a little bit weird. Let's just go with let's just not weird, but let's just go with Josh Allen for now. Kind of a bailout, but I know. Let's just go with him. Great spot there. In terms of running backs, obviously CMC projects as the best running back on the slate, so 9,000 for him. I think you just kind of go there just because of the volume. It's just insane, right? Like, nothing's changed. Obviously coming off of a disappointing game there where they kind of got blown out a little bit by the Rams. So they kind of bailed on the run, and he was, obviously still heavily involved in the passing game there. Even if Ricky Pearsall is back, like it's CMC 9,000, just massive, massive volume. He once again looks really, really good here in the spot against the Cardinals, who are, kind of depleted, a little bit banged up there, have not been the best. Bijan Robinson, I think, makes for a very, very interesting leverage play here. Just been terrible in terms of those touchdowns. Like, I think only 4 rushing touchdowns on the season, as we saw last week against Indiana over there. I think that was in Berlin. He got his touchdowns vultured by Tyler Algier. So I don't know what's going on with that backfield. They're just not showing Bijan any love. I'd be really, really frustrated if that was him. But yeah, he's coming off of 3 really, really bad games here. But we know the talent is there. The workload usually is there. So I don't mind getting him here at 8,300. Good spot against Carolina, a defense that was decent through the first 8 weeks, but now they're kind of fallen off a little bit. They were letting up 100-yard games to wide receivers, 100-yard total games to running backs. So obviously a guy like Bijan with his talent, he looks really good as a nice leverage spot off of a super chalky CMC if you did want to go there. I mean, we get Josh Jacobs. He's not pulling a ton of ownership now. Like, he's going against the Giants, a really bad defense. They love to force feed Josh Jacobs, and he's kind of the only stability the Packers have right now. So he looks really, really good. I mean, James Cook here. If the Bills, as I said, this whole season so far, if the Bills are playing well, it's most likely 99% of the time, at least this season, due to James Cook doing really, really well. So that is the thing there. James Cook looks good. Moving on down a little bit more. Rico Dowdle going against Atlanta. Going to be force-fed as a running back 1. Disappointing game there, but still put up 15 because he got in the end zone. So I like him once again, as you guys should. Derrick Henry is interesting. Had a horrible game there against Cleveland, but we know the upside there is, with him. It doesn't really matter the matchup. He can break off an 80-yarder for a touchdown still. So I think it's a very interesting tournament. Kind of not a dart throw, but kind of that dart throw range just because he's pretty expensive. Not going to have a ton of ownership, but he's one of those guys as we know can break the slate, even though he hasn't been the best this season. But that's a different conversation because of the injuries that happened to Lamar and just overall the team was pretty bad at the beginning of the season. Moving on down a little bit more, I think Quinshon Judkins is pretty interesting. They can't pass. He's a guy who's going to go out there and get 20 touches, gets a pretty bad Ravens defense, even though they have been better recently. I like him. I like Rachaad White here, another guy who's been really, really bad since Bucky Irving has been out, but we know the workload is there. Like, he's going to see 10-plus rushing attempts. He's going to see multiple targets on the backfield. We haven't really got like a huge game from him yet besides that week 5 game there. But we know he's a guy who can go for 20-plus if he's in a solid spot here. If this game stays close, like, I wouldn't be surprised if he goes for 20-plus this week. So I really like him at 6.2. Jaylen Warren looks like one of the best running backs because we're going against the Cincinnati Bengals defense, so we're going to lock him in there. This is going to be a really, really popular running back stack here, just locking in CMC and Jaylen Warren. But I think you eat the chalk there just because of the volume CMC is getting. And then Jaylen Warren going against one of the worst defenses in the league. He's getting a good amount of volume as well, heavily involved in the running game, involved in the passing game, and just an absolute smash spot here for the Steelers in a game they should be up. So looks really, really good against one of the worst defenses in the league. I think you eat the chalk here, and if you want to get a little bit riskier, you can definitely leverage off CMC and go to a guy like Bijan, as I mentioned, or one of these top running backs like a Jacobs. Looks really good there as kind of your 2 spend ups. Moving on down a little bit more. Swift's always viable. Chase Brown is interesting here, going against the Pittsburgh defense, who have given up a good amount of rushing yards to opposing backs. He's been good the past 3 weeks. I don't mind him, especially if you're not going to get to one of the kind of the main pass catchers there for the Bengals. I think he's definitely interesting. Moving on down a little bit more. Woody Marks, he's been steamed up this, today. There's a few reports came out from the head coach that, Woody Marks they might trade him as running back 1 this week finally. So we could see, 15, 20 touches out of Woody Marks, 5.4K against one of the worst, if not the worst team in the league. That's very, very appealing. So I like him a good amount at that price tag. And then you get RJ Harvey. J.K. Dobbins is out. They said RJ Harvey will be the lead back. He should pull some ownership. Like, they'll get him involved. But, like, how much can you trust Sean Payton in that workload for RJ Harvey? Like, I'd just rather get to Woody Marks, a guy who's clearly going to get that upside in a really, really good matchup where Harvey, could he be the running back 1 role? Could he see 15 touches? Yes. Like, he's explosive. But you're going against Kansas City, a good defense. So it's definitely going to have some risk there. And that's really it in terms of the running backs. Not much else to like there. Moving on to the wide receivers for this slate. We get obviously JSN, Puka, Chase at the top. Chase is going to be the most expensive, the most owned of the group there, the kind of the top wide receivers. Makes sense. I mean, you're going against Pittsburgh, as I mentioned, the worst defense the past few weeks in terms of just the yards they're giving up to opposing wide receivers. So he looks really good there. But then in terms of that, like, everyone else is going to be spread out in terms of ownership. Like, this guy's in good spots at every price point range. So if you want to pay it for one of these stud guys, just go with Chase. But obviously you have Puka, who's Puka, and then you have JSN, who's JSN. So, like, you can't really go wrong with these guys. If Jamar Chase is going to be 1.5 to 2 times more owned than Puka or JSN, like, it's clear you can easily just hop off of that ownership and get to one of these other 2 guys, and you'll feel fine about it. Same thing with Rashid Rice, not the best matchup there, but still heavily involved in that offense. Paying down to other guys like Justin Jefferson, I just can't trust JJ. He's just been so bad. Drake London is questionable. Solid matchup there against Carolina. He's been getting absolutely peppered with targets. Don't mind it. Igbuka, wide receiver 1 there with Baker. Like, he looks good as kind of a slightly less pay down option. Nico Collins has been, again, absolutely peppered there by Davis Mills. As you can see, 11 and 15 back-to-back games. Price hasn't moved. Great matchup against Tennessee. Hard to not really like Nico Collins this week. Once again, Ladd McConkey, his streak has been continuing, but it's just, I don't love the targets there, right? Like 7 and 6 the past 2 weeks. Like, yeah, he's been producing, but with Quentin Johnson back, with Gadsden most likely being back, like, they're fully healthy. It's just kind of like a Packers situation where it's hard to trust who's going to be the one to have the really good game there for the wide receivers. Keenan Allen's kind of been the odd man out the past few weeks, but still, it's just hard to trust it if you're going with, like, only building 1 or a few lineups to get to those Chargers wide receivers. I once again really like Zay Flowers, but this has kind of been, it's just been the past 3 years. He should be one of those, he should be like a top 10 wide receiver in the league. Like he has that ability. He's super quick. He's super fast. He's really, really good. But just overall, just in terms of this offense, they just can never get him in those spots where he has massive games. Like he'll have one random spike game, like as we saw week 1, and then from there he's just mid. Like, yeah, I know Lamar was hurt like half of the season, but still, if you look the past 3 years, like he should consistently be a top 10 wide receiver, kind of like Jalen Waddle, and their teams just don't get him involved. It's just frustrating. So at 6.4, I think he's a really solid contrarian option. I just wish like he had consistency to go for 15, 20 plus every game because he has that talent. It's just the offense of coordinators are just not there with him. Moving on down a little bit more, T. Higgins, obviously, if you're not going to get to Jamar Chase, he makes like for a really good leverage spot off of that, coming off a really good game there against the Bears. I think Sutton's a little bit interesting. Kind of some bad games there. Troy Franklin's kind of taken over that wide receiver 1 role, but still Sutton's very, very talented. Moving on down a little bit more, MHJ is out, so we have some viable guys there for the Cardinals if you want some value. DK Metcalf going against the Bengals defense. He looks really good there at that price tag, a guy that's not pulling a ton of ownership. Wandell, if you're going to Jameis, looks really good. Ricky should be good to go. I don't mind getting him at 5.4 if there's no restrictions. Shakir, if you're going to pair him with Josh Allen, I think for this we should 5.3. He looks like a good point per dollar guy, even though I don't love it just because, it's not always viable going to him just because Josh Allen kind of spreads out the ball. But, he's kind of been consistent past 3 weeks, 7, 8, and 9. There might be no Dawson Knox, so he's going to be clearly the best option there for Josh Allen. 5.3 is a good price tag. I don't mind getting to that, where other weeks I usually wouldn't. Juwan Jennings, with Ricky Pearsall coming back, I think he's an okay play. Parker Washington might be the wide receiver 1 once again there for the Jaguars if there's no Brian Thomas Jr. Dobbs, Romeo Dobbs, as well as Christian Watson are interesting plays. Really, really bad Giants defense. They're both pretty cheap. $5,000 for Dobbs, $4,400 for Watson. We know they're both kind of big play wide receivers. I don't mind getting into that. I don't love it, but they're definitely in play for this slate. Moving on and down a little bit more, kind of some cheaper options. Slayton, if he's good to go, you could definitely pair him with Jameis if you wanted to. Tez Johnson's fine. Kind of still has that explosive big playability there as the wide receiver 2 for the Bucs. Anyone else, kind of cheaper? Jerry Jeudy finally had a solid game there, but it's just hard to trust Dylan Gabriel. That team is just so bad there. But it's going to be a good game script in terms of they're going to have to throw the ball a ton because they most likely will be down the entire game to the Ravens. Calvin Austin makes for kind of an interesting dart throw, like 6'6", 7, 6'7". Can't believe I just did that. But yeah, he's there at 4,000 against one of the worst defenses in the league. Moving on a little bit more, like Wicks could be viable. But we can kind of get down to the Arizona Cardinals wide receivers. Like you got Michael Wilson's probably my favorite value. With Marvin Harrison Jr. being out, Greg Dortch, I guess is fine, but I'd really just stick with Michael Wilson as well as Trey McBride if you wanted to get to some of those Arizona guys. That's really it for that. And then moving on to tight end. Obviously, a guy we just talked about, Trey McBride. I mean, he's just been unreal. Don't mind if you want to pay up for him. Like, he should get 1 million targets in the spot from Brissett once again. So he looks amazing. George Kittle starting to come on strong here. Had a really good game that last week. Even with Pearsall back, I still think George Kittle's a fine play, pretty strong play. Kelsey, I don't mind him. Gadsden, fully healthy, should be back. He's interesting, but I think I'd just rather pay up for Kittle at that price or just get to Trey McBride. If you want to get to some cheaper options, Cade Otton, I like him. As I mentioned, he should be heavily involved there in that offense for the Bucs. Moving on down a little bit more, Theo Johnson there with Jameis Winston throwing him the ball. I like that. Kyle Pitts is interesting here. Good matchup, getting solid production as well and targets. Moving on now a little bit more. If you go to, you can definitely go to Mark Andrews if you're going to play Lamar. He's a good red zone threat for him. Moving on down a little bit more, if there's no Kincaid, sure, you can take a shot on Knox or Hawes. I don't love it, but they're viable. And that's really, it's likely, I'll call him out, coming off a bad game, but still had 5 targets there. He's interesting in tournament settings to pair with Lamar Jackson. If you wanted to do like a skinny stack and not get to Andrews or Zay Flowers, I think that's pretty appealing. And that's really it here for the tight end situation. So, yeah, in terms of kind of filling out the rest of this lineup, let's go to defense real fast. For defense, I'm going to pay up for either kind of the top three defenses here: Ravens, Texans, and Packers, all in fantastic spots, or just I think that's really it. I don't really love any of the defenses here in kind of their spots. I don't mind getting to the Panthers if you wanted to, but I think right now you just get to the Texans going against one of the worst defenses in the league. They're still pressuring a ton. Their defense is still pretty good. So really like the Texans in that spot. 4,500 left over. Josh Allen. We have Khalil Shakir, CMC, Jalen Warren, Woody Marks. Let's see if we can fit in Igbuka here. Go a little bit chalky, but a nice bring back option. We can. We might have to do a double tight end here, which I don't love necessarily, but we could definitely throw in Likely. I don't mind it. At least there's a 3,300 left over. Let's see who we can get to. Just Greg Dortch. I don't know why his targets are not being because he had a rushing touchdown there, but he could get some more work this week just because of the injury to MHJ. I guess we can do that. I don't necessarily love it, but let's just go ahead and I think we'll go ahead and do that for now. It's kind of early, first look build. I think it's fine to take kind of a dart throw on a guy who should be that wide receiver 2 there for the Cardinals with no Marvin Harrison Jr. So you get Josh Allen. You get, that skinny stack there with him and Shakir. You get CMC and Jalen Warren in great spots there. You get Ibuka as a bring back. You get Dortch as that value option there with no MHJ. You get Likely as kind of another punt. So I don't like the 2 punts of Dortch and Likely. But then you get Woody Marks in a good spot there against Tennessee, and you get the Texans defense to pair with them. So overall, game theory-wise, I think it's fine. I just don't love the double punt with Dortch and Likely. So we could pay down off of guys like if we want to get off of Ibuka. I don't mind getting to. Let's get up here a little bit more. I don't mind getting to like a T. Higgins here. You have that mini game stack between Warren and T. Higgins. That we have 1,200 left over. We can get off of Dortch there. 4,500. We can get to a Christian Watson. I wouldn't mind that. Could get to a Jerry Jeudy, which feels kind of gross. But that's really it. There's not a ton to like here under the 4,500 mark for the wide receivers. We could definitely get to Christian Watson if we wanted to. So, kind of 2 first look builds. Don't mind it. Obviously, you can pay down at defense, which will allow you to pay up at other spots. So that's viable. But yeah, that is the first look for you guys. Hope you guys liked the video. Hit the like button and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in my core play video on Saturday. Peace.